Okay, thanks, Jim. We're open and accountable here, so really the story's not Mike. That was about me. So, totally. He may have said Mike, but I thought he was talking to me on that one. So I get up stirred up sometimes, and people don't even know what I'm stirred up about. Hey, listen, before we went on, I wanted to say one other thing that I forgot to mention last week, and I just wanted to encourage you guys that we've got a lot of people, new faces here over the last few months, and we're going to try to start a little earlier. We got a little messed up tonight. We're still having some problems with the slides, so we're not quite synced with my computer yet, but we'll get that, and we're running a little bit late tonight. We're going to try to start a little closer to having that doors open at 6:25. We're going to start trying to have the opening at 6:35, and then I'll try to start at 6:40 if I can. We're a little bit behind that tonight. The other thing I wanted to remind you is that we really need some volunteers to help with the opening out there, to set up and take down, and then Becky Duncan, who helps us administratively, has a few little things that can help out. And so if you feel like Prodigal has helped you, you're looking for a place to serve, I know we're all busy, but I'd ask you to prayerfully consider saying, hey, I can help in certain ways, or I can get here early, or I can stay a little late and help, or I can help Becky during the week do some things. Even if we don't have anything right now, it'd be cool to have a group of little angel armies we could call on. So I'd ask you to think about that if you would. So tonight's about the process, and a lot of people come, and it's kind of a bait. I feel like it's a bait and switch sometimes at newcomers when you come in and you really want to have a fix for your prodigal, but yet you realize after about 15 minutes of us talking to newcomers that, wait a minute, this might not be about that exactly tonight. So it's a process, and we really do love the prodigals, and we want them to do very, very well. But we don't. The prodigals, if you look around, they're not here tonight, and it's crazy that you're in rehab, and they're the ones out doing the craziness. But there's a method to that, and so now we're talking about that. Hey, stay with us. It's a process. It doesn't happen overnight. In America, in fast food environment, this just takes some time. Everybody wants a plan when they come into newcomers, but it just takes a little while to work through the process to get to that plan. So the motivation for this talk tonight, if you take the next slide, is I think we and God wants you to have peace and comfort. There's verses that talk about the peace and the comfort that you have, and that God wants you to have. We want you to have a closer relation with Jesus. We want you to have joy in the midst of your circumstances, and we want your prodigals return and have them walking with God. That would be a great, our directional team and the leadership team years ago said, wait a minute, we haven't really thought about what this looks like. What would be a win for everybody when they left here? And so these are some of the things that we would love for you to leave Prodigal with. And if you can get joy in the midst of your circumstances, as we said last week, this sets you up for every trouble that's coming down in life. So if we're distressed, it's for your comfort and salvation. And if we're comforted, it's for your comfort. Which in you, a patient endurance of the same sufferings that we suffer. So we've gone through this. We want you to have the peace and the comfort that we found along the way. Not to say we're not sad, not to say we struggle. We want you to have what we have. So the problem with this process is it's hard. There's no quick fix, and you have to define what you're in control of. I had some slides I took out of last time I gave this. It was right after I got back last fall from my trip in the Yukon, and it didn't work real well, so I took it out. I was afraid it wouldn't work. I'm glad I did, but because it really wouldn't work with my computer tonight. But it was just that picture of this most serene, everything I had in mind on the first day. Got up in this lake, and it was just, I mean, literally, if you saw it now, it's one of the most beautiful scenes I've ever seen in my life. The waters were calm, the sky was incredible, clear, crystal. This three-time world champion moose caller guide was bellowing in my ear, and the hair on the back of my neck was standing up, and it was amazing. And I thought, oh, God, how good is God? And then the next slide shows 4 days I was in camp with it snowing sideways, lakes frozen over, and my moose hunt that I've planned for a year is gone. There's no way I can, the lake's frozen over, we're done. The only reason I can't go home is because the bush plane can't get in. And so it was just a great picture to me that the horse is made ready for the day of the battle, but victory rests with the Lord. And it's true of us. We can control ourselves directly, but we can't control the environment, your family, and you can't control your prodigal's choices within the boundaries you set. So that's the problem. So the goals really is to understand where you are now, and then where you want to go. And then the process is between here and there. And so understanding this journey is a process that takes time and patience and perseverance and work by you. It's the only thing you can go to work and do. And so the process at its core is about you and what you can control and how to shift your paradigm. So I just want to have you think about what a self-assessment of where you are now, before we figure out where you want to be in the process. But I would ask you, you don't have to say this out loud, or you might write this down on your slide sometime this week or the handout that you have, but what do you really want most in life? And then I ask you to think about what do you think about the most? This is your paradigm of life, if you're honest with yourself. So just think about this while we're going to, how do you use your money? Not how do you say you're going to use your money. I'm going to get around to tithing. I'm going to do this, that, and the other. But how much of your money goes for yourself and others and whatever. And I'm as convicted by this as anybody in the room. What do you do with your leisure time? How is it spent? What company do you enjoy? I would almost say, it's really meddling, is what kind of TV shows do you watch? Who and what do you admire? And then what do you laugh at? What do you think is funny? These are totally your self-assessment questions. But so let me compare that with the biblical paradigm. And this is certainly, y'all, I'm calling myself out on this, right? So there's no judgment here. It's just trying to get us to think about the paradigm of what, how I would answer those questions in college, how I would answer those questions today, and then hopefully how I'll answer those questions even better in the future. I hope it comes closer to this, and that is, whatever's true, we should be thinking about what's noble and right and pure and lovely and admirable and excellent and praiseworthy. Those are the things we should be thinking about. The fact that who we hang out is that we shouldn't be yoked with unbelievers. We should be in the world and telling them about Christ and making friends, but in terms of who we're yoked with, who we're married to, those kind of things, it's hard. We should be yoked. We should not be yoked with unbelievers. Where my treasure is, where my heart will be. So how we spend our money is where our heart will follow. If we invest heavily in something in one way or the other, our heart has to follow that. And we can't serve two masters. I sometimes I'm better at it, but I find myself disappointed with myself at times when in the back of my mind, without saying it out loud, I feel a little better when my bank account's a little bit bigger and a little bit better, and I just feel a little bit more secure. And I go, we just snuck up on me, and I'm serving that master a little bit, knowing that he can take care of me. And so that's where it's great to be yoked with a believer like Jenny, who reminds me that God's in control, and he can take it away or give me all I need, and he's always giving me more than I need. So it's about love, joy, peace, patience. You get the point. And so the paradigm shift is if we're God, it's a worldview. And if God is God, it's an eternal perspective. It's totally different, and the world just doesn't understand it. And so, 1921, that's a typo, it should be Proverbs 19:21 if you want to correct that. It says, many are the plans in a man's heart, but it's the Lord's purpose that prevails. Whereas Proverbs 14:12, that, where all things are right in a man's eye, but at the end they lead to death. And so the point is if you go through those, we're in control on the left. Just go through those, Randy. It's all about us and our needs, our perception, and our value by others, the people pleasing. If we can fix our prodigal, everything, if I could just get my prodigal off drugs, if I could just get my mom to stop drinking, if I could get my, whatever, then everything's going to be okay. And then our vision is comfort now and peace in the home at any cost. But the other paradigm shift is um, we're not in control. It's all about God, our relationship with Him and serving Him is paramount. And we use our prodigal chaos as an instrument to grow closer to God. And our joy is independent of fixing our prodigal, and our vision is seeing Jesus face to face, joy now and eternity thereafter. And so Jim asked us in the leaders meeting the night beforehand, he says, what's some of your biggest paradigm shifts that you've gone through? And my mind was wondering, I've had one of those days, but I remember, I think, Hugh pointed out that his big paradigm was he used to think that, why is God treating me this way when I've been so good? And now it's the joy that I get to encourage by growing in God through my troubles. My troubles are not that God's mad at me. My troubles are just what's promised, and it's a way for me to grow if I can depend on Him. Now that is a monstrous paradigm shift, right? It's everything. And that happened over time. I can tell you firsthand, you didn't get there overnight. So, in a book, 7 Habits of Highly Effective Prodigal Parents, it said that they reviewed 200 years of the success literature in this country. And the first 150 years, up to about 1960, had to be, it was a character ethic. It was the way that most of us in this room were raised. That hey, you work hard, you get up early, you stay late, you're the first one in, you're the last one to leave. And over time, the cream will rise to the top. And that's how you do it. And it based on integrity, humility, and fidelity. And you go to people who have character and you trust them. And you look at their resume and you see how that works. And just basic principles of effective living that experience true success and enduring happiness. And then in the last 50 years, all those books have changed. Or not all of them, but most of them have changed. And it's a personality ethic. It's like success is a function of your personality and your image and your marketing. And if it looks good, I think I'm just going to go do that. And so the paths are taken is that you're your own God and you deserve it. Just do it, right? With Nike and public relations techniques and all of that thing. And the quick fix is the answer. You can be your own God, you can have it, and you can have it now. And that's just a different shift. So I'm just going to do a little quick thing for you here. And if you've done this before, you can't participate. But if you've had one of those little pictures that are in front of you, pass it to somebody that's never had one. So if you've never seen that picture, just grab it and look at this picture. And what I want you to do is turn your hand out over right now. If you would for me. Okay. Turn your hand out over and then look at the picture that you have. So the handout that you were following, I don't want you to look at. Now study the photograph before you right there for a second. Just look at it and just kind of see what you're looking at. Okay. So now look at this picture. So how many people see an old, ugly woman? Raise your hand. Right? How many people see a young, beautiful woman? Okay. So, all right, Jim. Good. Jim said this usually falls flat. And half of it's almost half and half, right? Half of you saw an old woman, and half of you saw a young woman. And most of the was on split down the side. And so it's a matter, look, this is the same picture. So when you're in an argument, right, and you're saying, I don't understand how you can come to this conclusion. This is crazy. You're an idiot. This is Fox News and CNN, I mean, it's the same story, right? But it's how they spin it. If Fox News has one thing, and if CNN has another, but the same, there's a story there. It's probably a poor analogy, but you get my point. It's what kind of background did you come from? Did you come from a poor family, a rich family, a wealthy family, an entitled family, or whatever? So when you're having a discussion in this, and you're dealing with prodigals, did you have an alcoholic in the family? Did you struggle with addiction? Have you never seen it before? The point is that paradigms are set with a lot of things in mind. And the only way that I prepped you differently is this was done in the Harvard Business School. And so for those of you that see the young woman for those of you that see the old woman, the young woman's here with her cute nose and an eyelash. Here she is, and she's got a necklace around her neck. Okay? And then for those that see the old woman, this is just nothing but a big old schnoz, a big chin, and a mouth. And so it's a matter of the picture you saw had most of that in there that led you to a certain direction. And so all I would ask you is that you said, hey, I can't do this. I can't love my mother in this way. I can't love my son in this way. I can't get my arms around the fact that if they went to prison and that was the best thing for them, that I could live with that. I mean, that's all we're saying as we go through this process of the prodigal is that try to evaluate everything with an open mind and realize that it's difficult to get from where Hugh was, thinking it was all about him, to where he is now thinking it's how does God want me to glorify him in whatever circumstance I have, including my prodigal situation. That's the difference. And that's the paradigm shift. And and as I saw, I always pick on Craig, because he's like some people taste longer than others, and Ross just took a while, and so I can sit here in Jenny's group, and she just kept coming home to me and saying, this guy is such a nice guy, he's so great, and he wants to change, and he just can't. It was just so hard for him, right? He saw the pain, and he was thinking he was still in control, and then he could do something about it, and over time, God changed his heart. And there's not a guy that I could trust more right now in a prodigal situation than the losses. And it just took a while to change that paradigm. So that's what we're trying to do. So the paradigm definition is just a frame of reference in which you view the world. It's kind of like people when they come to Christ. They have this paradigm, they grew up, and it's for the weak, and if you believe you're a scientist, you can't believe in it, and there's no facts to make your faith reasonable, and that's just not true. So be open to the idea and explore everything. Our God is a God of reason, and if he created the universe and did what he said, then go at him. Ask the questions. He's big enough. Don't just dismiss him out of hand. Let's go. Let's discuss every hard question you have, because if God's who he says he is and he created the universe, he's big enough to answer your questions. And if you're not big enough to answer them, then that's your problem, to ask them. So minor changes can be achieved with little attitude changes, but significant change requires a paradigm shift based on solid principles. Remember last week we talked about the only thing that can help you get hope is truth. And the more the truth is really the truth, the absolute truth, and you're based on that, then the firmer your hope should be. So these paradigm shifts are often prompted in these life-threatening moments and or life-changing moments, and prodigal crisis would be one of those. So I forgot to bring my book tonight, so I think I can read this, but if you'll, this one right here. Let me read you this. This was published in a military journal several years ago. It was in the Proceedings. It was the magazine of the Naval Institute. And this is a story I want to read to you. 2 battleships were assigned to the training squadron, had been left at sea on maneuvers in heavy weather for several days. I was serving on the lead battleship and was on watch on the bridge as night fell. The visibility was poor with patchy fog, so the captain remained on the bridge, keeping an eye on all activities. So shortly after dark, the lookout on the wing of the bridge reported, "Light burning on the starboard bow." "Is it steady or is it moving astern?" the captain called out. Lookout replied, "Steady, Captain," which meant we were on a dangerous collision course with that ship. The captain then called to the signalman, "Signal that ship the following: we are on a collision course. Advise you change course 20 degrees. Back came a signal: advisable for you to change course 20 degrees. The captain said, "Send this. I'm a captain. Change course 20 degrees. "I'm a seaman second class," came the reply. "You had better change course 20 degrees. By that time, the captain was furious. He spat out, "Send, I'm a battleship. Change course 20 degrees. Back came the flashing light. "I'm a lighthouse." We changed course. So the point is that you're coming at an argument with not all the facts. And so I think if you're pursuing God in a way you've never pursued him, or if you're going through Prodigal, just be open to the idea that you might not have all the facts. You might be looking at life through a paradigm that's really more about you than it is about God. And I think that's going to won't come to a good end. So principles that we want to preach here in Prodigal over the next many weeks are like those lighthouses. Those principles are like the lighthouses that don't change, and they're the inerrant truths of God guiding us away from those rocks and those collision courses. And so if you decide you're going to believe and obey those truths and obedience, or are you going to argue with the lighthouse? And the more our paradigms align with God's truths, the more I think you're going to find life. It's this, I meet with young men all the time, and they're so afraid, just like I was, of what I was going to give up. I was so worried because at a party, I could tell the funniest jokes, and unfortunately the dirtiest jokes, and you know, my nickname was the Keg, and when I came in, it was on. And I was so afraid that I was going to give that up. I look back and I go, I mean, how silly is that, right? I mean, but, you know, there's a time where that's just like the most important thing ever. You know, I have friends that gave up alcohol, and they just felt like they couldn't give it up. And now you just go, what great, good things God has for you that just make you embarrassed to even say that in public, right? Let's see. So the way we see the problem might be the problem. Could there be something deeper? I often say, and to some people, usually when I get a little bit of trust or feel like I have a little trust, or we might need to get your attention at some point, because it's the truth, is that you'd say, okay, for just a moment, you know, could this journey really be about you? You know, could this be a way of God getting your attention and saying, man, do I have something great in mind for you in the future? You know, if you'll just stay with me on this. I've been trying to get your attention, but remember we talked about last week, I'm not going to take away this snake just yet. I want you to keep looking toward me. Because when I take it away, you tend to kind of go back and do your stuff like the Israelites did. So what if he just said, I love you enough not to take away your snake? And I want so that you have to keep looking at me. And then when you get me and you get how much I love you and what I've actually done for you gladly, wait till you see what I have in store for you. What if it was about that? So the parenting paradigm is, you know, what are the healthy expectations for our children? We have these paradigms, and our perception are sometimes determined by their performance. With me, it was really true, right? I wanted this great Olympic athlete and to watch 4 years of D1 basketball, and or could it be an artistic thing? Could it be a college degree or a medical degree or honors or this beautiful spouse or husband or perfect house and husband and wife? I mean, could those be the things? Or it could be that you let the child emerge and really not control those expectations and keep the end in mind, that if the end of the day, if all you had was a child or a mom or a dad who was eventually following God, that would be all you would need. If that would be your paradigm shift, that's a totally different look. And when you interrupt, when you get in between your prodigal and God and rescue them and enable them and feel like you're in control, then not only are you interfering with, the only way that God can really change and shape your prodigal is to let them work it out. And he does that, I've got to tell you, he does that with consequences. He does that with the Word of God. If they read it and obeyed it, he has that for them. But most of the time, if they don't read the Word of God, he's going to do it with consequences. And when you rescue them from their consequences, you do two things. You interfere with a tool God can use, i.e. a consequence, and you send them a message saying that you can't do it. We don't feel like you can do it, so I'm going to give you $20. I don't feel like you can do it, so here's a phone and a roof over your head, because I just don't think you got what it takes to do it. And if you don't think they hear that, there's plenty of evidence to show that they do feel that. So when you step out, let's go back, that's every time, the new message is, if you don't do that, I think those slides are backward, but we don't need to protect you. If I don't rescue you, say, I'm not going to give you that money. Because you know why? You may be mad at me, but I don't believe you need that. I believe you're fundamentally okay. I believe you're going to make it. And I believe you have everything in order to figure this out. It's just a different message. The alternative methods I covered. So the new paradigm possibilities are, do I really have to have my son or daughter achieve this for them to be happy? Or for me to be happy, I meet my needs met? You know, all those things I mentioned, is that really a requirement? And as I've said, you know, I picture this table with those Olympic things and the college things and the college education and the high school education, you know, all those things just kind of, I just kept, you know, you just take those off the table, you know, they just keep coming off, and all that stuff that you put out there as something that just all my children are going to do, you know, I begin to realize those were all, you know, privileges and not rights. And at the end of the day, the only thing out there really needed to be, I just want them to walk with God. Because if they know that, then everything else is going to take care of itself. I don't care what kind of job they have. I don't care anything else. If they're walking with God and they're doing that faithfully, they're going to find a godly woman. They're going to be yoked with a believer. They're going to honor God in their job. If you do that, everything else changes, and it's all you need. So I've given some other paradigm possibilities there, but I think I've said it all in that slide. So the observational quotes are, there's different people say it different ways. Todd is always around here, has always had a quote that he said it 3 times Sunday, I think. If you like where you are, keep doing what you're doing. And it's just so true. I mean, sometimes people will give you the Heisman, I'll meet with somebody, I can't do that, or you know, they'll come and they'll want to meet, and you know, you met with people and they say, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, my life is crazy, whatever, and you give them a couple of thoughts and go, oh, I can't do that. I go, well, you know, it's all I got. Just all I got is truth. And so if you like where you are, keep what you're doing. And you hit that. One day those lines are going to cross, right? And when they do, you know, I'll be here. Or I hope somebody else is there to catch you, but I don't have anything else. If you like where you are, keep doing what you're doing. And he stole it from Einstein. He just said it in a more educational way. Einstein said, the significant problems we face cannot be solved at the same level of thinking we were in when we created them. And then Proverbs comes out and says there's ways which seem right to a man, and they lead to death. They're all saying the same thing. So one of the ways to get started here is that the ultimate paradigm is your mission statement. So if all of you have been here, if you've been through, only the ones that haven't been through open group all the way might not have done their mission statement. But if you've been through Prodigal, ultimately when you go through one of the weeks in open, you will be asked to kind of write down your mission statement. And it's just a filter that we view all those circumstances through. And because what you believe, you know, you may say what you think, but you're only going to do what you believe. And so we ask you to write down honestly what you believe. And you know, I haven't told this story in a while, I don't think, but some of you have heard it. But when I was a newcomer one night, I had a mom, and she was sitting beside me, and used to be newcomer was 3 weeks. So it was the second week I had her, and she was coming back, and she said, it was just, this was my week, and I had a tough week, and my prodigal ran away, and my siblings her siblings told me, and so she went down to the bus station, and she was going to run away to California to be with her sister. And she was tearful, and she said, so I went down there. I didn't have any choice. I was just so afraid of what would happen to her on the bus, and so I bought her an airline ticket to go to California because it would just at least I know she was safe. And everybody was at the newcomer group was just wanting to see how I would respond to that, right? And God shows up sometimes, and I just, rather than saying like what you all say, like, are you kidding me? I just said, okay, so let me ask you this. What's your goal in life? What's a win look like for you? And what's your mission? I mean, what's your mission in life? And at that point, she just began to sob, and she said, all I want to be is a great mom. I just want her to love me. That's all I want. That's my mission. That's my goal in life. And I said, you know what? Then that makes perfect sense what you just got to do, right? That makes sense with that mission statement. I get it. So let's think about this. Is that the mission statement that you want to have the rest of your life, right? So let us process that with you. Right now, that makes perfect sense. But let's just review that and see if that's the thing God would lead you and have you be, right? And so that's what this whole ministry is about. It's just trying to figure out if that's where you want to go. Because if it's about you being happy, then, and that's all it's about, and making a bunch of money and having your life be free of problems, you probably should run away from your prodigal, right? It's not going to be fun, right? And take all your stuff and leave, right? But that's not a great, I think that's not going to turn out well either. But you get my point. But if it's here about serving Him, it just looks different. So unless you know where you're going, how can we help you? And so, so if you're afraid your prodigal, examples, if you afraid your prodigal will die if they're go to the next slide, if they're left on their own, the thing you need to ask yourself is, do you really believe you have the power to save them? That's a real misconception that we all struggle with for a while. Until we get over the fact that we really believe that we're just not sure God can save them, and we need to help Him out. The horse is made ready for day of battle, but victory, the ultimate outcome, rests with God. You know, I talk to this about my patients all the time. It's such a great way for me to talk to them about it, because when they're ready to go to surgery, there's nobody in their right mind. I don't care what the surgery is, how big or how little. When they go under anesthesia, that is not fun for them. You know why? Because it's one time in their life, they got no control. So it's a great time for me to talk to them about, you know, you're in, you know, the control of your life. It's just a wonderful thing. It's a misconception that we're in control anyway. So do you believe your job is really to save them? Or do you believe you'll have to answer to God and give an account for the way you parent them? And so those are some of the paradigm shifts. And those are our go-to verses right down there. If you didn't know any verses in Prodigal and you knew those verses, it would help you along the way. So the proper paradigm is futile personality and quick fixes, in my mind, in front of character. It just takes time. And you can't live out a plan on a quick fix or we see people all the time come in here and they get a plan, they work out a plan, and they just go home, or they hear the plan talk this every week here, and then they come in and they just, okay, here's my plan. And the minute the child can blow that plan up in about 37 seconds, just boom. And so it takes character, right, and integrity, and rooted in the truth, like those big trees we talk about sometimes, rooted in the river of living water, with the desert around you, but those trees have a root system that goes down to the truth of the living water. And at that point, your plan can hold up. And it just takes time. You can't get there overnight. So character starts with leading yourself. How do you get that character? It starts with leading yourself. You know, you can't do anything else tonight. You can't make your wife do something. Your wife can't make you do something, really. You can influence each other, but only you can draw a circle around yourself and get yourself and start developing character. And this process that I know is called spiritual disciplines. And so it just looks like Jesus called character, in my opinion, the heart in the Sermon on the Mount. And in Hosea, he says, I desire mercy, not sacrifice, an acknowledgement of God rather than burnt offerings. I think that means it's not about the works. It's not about being, purely going through a checkbox. It's loving me and having a relationship with me, so that the check boxes are something you want to do, not something you have to do. And leading yourself starts with obedience to God's word. When you don't feel like it, get up in the morning and read His word and pray to Him. Do you not think you can be honest to God? Lord, I am tired this morning. I got a million things on my mind. I can't remember if it was Spurgeon or somebody else that said, it was some big dog across the sea, but I think it was Spurgeon that said, I pray an hour every morning unless I'm really overwhelmed and busy, and then I pray 2 hours. And Jim can correct me who that was, but I think it was him. But the point is this daily prayer. This is a battle I'm convinced is in the heavenly realms. If any group, any ministry believes this is a battle that Satan's involved with, it's you guys. Right? I mean, you've just seen your kids change in such a way that it has to be supernatural. It's hard to explain it any other way. kid you held in your arms, the mom that raised you, being crazy. So prayerfully every day, getting into his word every day, that's how you begin to build yourself up. And once you lead yourself, you can begin to lead others, your spouse, your family, and everyone around you in your community. So I'm as you know, I'm a surgeon, and so I don't like to talk about things a whole lot unless we're going to do something about it. So I would love to, I want to find the tumor, cut it out, move on, right? So what I want you to do is to ask, what can you do? It starts one step at a time. So I would love for you, if you're not in a daily reading plan, to get in one. We've given you an opportunity through the Prodigal Study Guide that you could actually, I know many of you in Bible studies. It doesn't have to be Prodigal Study Guide. I think it would be nice, I think it would be reasonable if you were here, because it would give you a daily look into what we're about to talk about. It would get you involved in that, have you thinking about the same questions I'm answering you on Tuesday. You've already thought about those things, and you're daily in that. You're looking at those scriptures, and then it means more. I'm an old BSF guy, so I copy everything I do. I have no original thought. It worked for me. Every day I was in it, I heard the lecture, and we went out and discussed it, and it changed my life. Totally changed my life. And so process your reading with biblical community. Well, Jenny and I are going through the Old Testament right now in the journey, and I got to tell you, she asks me questions, and I go, hey, I don't know. This stuff is wearing me out. Everybody's killing everybody. We're sleeping with concubines. This is David. This is the best guy we got in the Old Testament, right? And I'm saying, I just want to get through this. I'm not discipling any. Usually I say, join me in the journey, you young men. I'm not doing that right now. But I need to process that with community. And I'm learning more that some of the things that I don't get, when I bring in others around me, I'm starting to understand why God put that in there. And I'm trying to learn that. We don't have to know everything in there. If you don't get it, process that in community. Solitude, listening is something I never did until lately. I wanted to tell God, I was like Harvard. We say in the medical profession, we have a hard time getting information to Harvard. We get all the information out of Harvard, but we can't get anything to them. And I think that's the way that I am sometimes. I just want to get all my information to God, and I'm not ready to accept what he's willing to tell me after I ask him things, to sit there and listen to what he might have me do. So all those things are great. I just got a text from God that was Martin Luther that said that. So thank you. And God is bald. So show up next week, work on your marriage, and this place is safe. It's just not comfortable. And it's not comfortable because we love you, and it's safe because we love you. If you think that giving your prodigal a gift and buying them a relationship is the way to do it, to get them on your good side, come on back, because we've all done it. We all understand it. This place is totally safe. But don't expect us to say that's the right thing, right? Because you're coming here to get some biblical counsel. The Bible would tell us that's not wise. So it's safe, but it's not comfortable. We're not going to try to micromanage you. We're going to give you direction about discipline your son, and that there is hope. Do not be a willing party to his death. But what that discipline looks like is your call. Is it taking away texting? Is it taking away the phone? Is it taking away the car? Process that with your community. It's safe, but it's not comfortable. It's direction, but not directions. And so at that point, you might be able to live out this application, considering it pure joy when you encounter various trials, knowing that the testing of your faith produces endurance, and let endurance have its perfect result, so that you may be perfectly complete, lacking in nothing. That is one of the most shocking paradigms in the Bible, in my opinion. And when you read that, it doesn't make any sense unless you've been through something like this and you get it. But I don't think there's a leader here or a veteran in Prodigal that really gets it, that has any problem with that verse at this point. It rings true. So be obedient today. The end is up to God. And the principles we discussed and the Prodigal Study Guide questions would be what are your biblical lighthouses? What do you hang on to? And at this moment, what do you honestly think at the core what do you think about God, and what are those principles that you're going to hang on as you go forward? There's some questions in your study guide that your closed group leaders can go over. Thank you for your time, and have a good discussion. Thank you.
Hey guys, if you're here for